Hey, I'm Rita Cook with ECP-TV and Politics and How It Affects You. And I am sitting here today with one of my favorite people in the world, and especially to interview State Representative Carl O. Sherman, District 109.
Hi, Rita. I'm excited about being here, and I'm always excited about being on ECP and talking to the public here. I know you've got a quality program, and I always look forward to being a part of it.
Thank you. So we're just going to get right to the point because I know most people have heard of Bo's Law, House Bill 929. And the good news is it actually passed through, and I'm going to tongue-tie this, Homeland Security and Public Safety Committee on Thursday night. It was a 6-3 vote with 3 Republicans voting. So we can see it is a bipartisan bill after all, even,
Absolutely. Homeland Security, Public Safety passed out late Thursday night, and I was extremely excited. I notified one of my joint authors, or in fact, I notified all of my joint authors on the bill, which the dean of the Freedom Caucus, the Republican Party Freedom Caucus, Matt Krause, is a joint author on the bill with me, and he was ecstatic. He said his words, "Praise God," that we got it passed. And J.C. Jatan, also a Republican out of Fort Bend County, is a joint author on the bill. I think the first Asian American Republican from Fort Bend County to represent. He's a joint author, and Ron Reynolds, a Democrat out of Houston. So it's bipartisan, and the next step is to go to calendars, which I've been working closely with the chairman there, Dustin Burrows, who is a very fair and honorable man, and look forward to getting a good hearing and hopefully come out on the floor for us to vote on it. And with having so much strong bipartisan support,
it's great.
I expect, we will have more systemic accountability in policing. We want to make sure that all the evidence is there to uphold the integrity of policing as a profession, and not redact or edit out footage. And I'm grateful to Charlie Hatfield for testifying on the bill. He did a phenomenal job and represented this region of North Texas very well.
Well, I think one of the things with Bo's Law is that like most of my police officer friends really thought this was a great bill, and I know there was some questions the union had, but one of the things I like about you, and I had said this to someone, is you were willing to compromise, and I think that that's what politics is all about, because somebody could have come along in 2 years from now and they might not have wanted to compromise. I mean, it hasn't passed yet, but I think it's such a popular bill and there's so much media coverage on it and interest that I really would like to know who doesn't think it's a good idea for police officers to wear body cams. I mean, come on, that's for everybody. You don't want somebody to walk into your home and shoot you. It's, so there's so many things that, and there were a lot of really crazy rumors about this bill, and I think that's part of politics. But what was the craziest rumor you heard about it?
Well, that's true, and let me say that as far as resources too, I want you to know that I joint authored a bill 1972, HB 1972, to provide resources for cities, their PDs, to have the funds to be able to store the video as well, because that's costly as well. And that passed out of committee as well. But the craziest thing I heard was, you're trying to stop us from being able to protect and defend ourselves. They thought that I was tampering with a castle doctrine in a detrimental way. And sometimes in politics, as much as you're trying to help to ensure that we strengthen the castle doctrine, I want every Texan to be able to defend their home, their property, their family, and dadgummit, even if they're at their friend's house, they ought to be able to do that. But unfortunately, because there are folks who play politics, there were people out there putting poison in the well. And so I just decided I'm taking the castle doctrine out of the bill. I'm taking mistake of fact out of the bill because I'd rather have more time to educate rather than have people oppose something that they really didn't have time to understand.
Okay, so
The
you
sheriff's-
took those two things out of the bill. Okay,
Yes,
all right.
and the Texas Sheriff's Association, they helped write the bill for me, so I'm really happy to have their support. That was very important to me, along with some other law enforcement groups.
Okay. I think there was another bill that was relating to the Castle Doctrine as well. So maybe
Yeah.
there's So, okay. So you never know. I mean, this bill has to pass. It just has to. So.
Yeah, I agree.
So, a couple of other bills I want to talk about that were important is House Bill 1639, which is body cameras for all. And it's shocking to me that correctional officers don't have to wear body cameras. I mean, that's safety for them again, too.
Absolutely. You know, it is a dangerous place to be in the housing, units right now as a correctional officer.
Right.
And what we want to do is have more oversight there and ensure that, the facilities are doing things properly.
Right,
Now,
exactly.
look, the only way drugs get into the prison is unfortunately, through staff.
Right, there's no other way. It's not
So-
like, the people
Right.
there are going out and coming back with, their supplies for the week. No,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Just
So-
the same as coronavirus.
Yeah.
It didn't get into the prison by the folks who are there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have to have more accountability, and that's what this is about. I filed a bill 1971 with Representative, I just forgot his name, Canales.
Canales, right.
And I had a bill separate too, but we're also trying to bring in air conditioning into
Right.
the housing units because people are dying in our prisons. We've got 98 prisons right now currently open in the state, and most of those do not have AC. And temperatures, according to Texas A&M, temperatures are reaching 130, 140 degrees in some cases, and literally people are dying. And we are not called, I mean, I know Charlie would say amen to this. Matthew chapter 25, verse 35 through 45 talks about when Jesus comes back, he's going to say, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was sick, you visited me. And then he says, when I was in prison, you visited me. And, we have a responsibility. Our animal shelters, we have to keep them at temperatures that are set to ensure that the animals are able to live.
And now,
these are people.
Yeah, and I just want to say one thing about that. Even if you think that people belong in prison, I know a lot of people have that idea, but still, you can't look at that and not say that there shouldn't be air conditioning if there's animals that are there's air conditioning in the SPCA. Yeah. So
And look, we've got some realignment to do culturally speaking,
Right.
because even our stuff that we put in storage, we have these climate control storages
Right.
that keep the temperatures between 55 degrees and 80 degrees. But we're not doing that for people.
Yeah.
And that's God's first agenda, what he's going to say when he comes back.
I mean, this
So
comes
I
from a
think-
soul thing.
Yeah.
It's a soul thing, people. So if
And-
you're watching this, yeah.
And the other thing is this. Let me just say this, not to contradict what you said.
Okay.
But I believe some people do belong in prison. Some
Okay.
people do belong in prison. But when you think about it, we don't always get it right.
Right.
Ben
Yes.
Spencer was 34 years in prison. He was innocent. Now he's out. But, how many innocent people are in our prison?
Right.
And how many people are in our prison that didn't get a just sentence?
That's
You
the
got
question.
somebody that killed
Yes.
somebody and they get 2 years probation, and then another person that writes a hot check and they get 2 years in prison.
Exactly.
So
there's no rhyme or reason in that. Even the gentleman, we can't get into this right now, we don't have time, but that I know that's on death row, he was a criminal, but he didn't do what he was put in death row for. So just because somebody sells drugs doesn't mean they murdered. And there's, we have a lot to do. You have a lot to do because you're a state representative. So it's really not.
We do, and I appreciate being on this show so that we can
Yeah.
communicate with the many to let them know what's going on.
So I want to add, we were going to talk about House Bill 1638 really quick, cameras in all prisons, which is important. But the one thing I wanted to really talk about was this House Bill 1927 that actually passed.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you didn't vote for that. It was even I have a gun actually, but I don't know how to shoot it the way I should, so therefore I don't carry it around. This bill would allow me to just take it out to the bar and see if I could, hit the bottle at the bar. So, right? I mean, pretty much, and it's in the Senate now. So, people, you guys need to call because this is dangerous for anybody.
Yeah. Well, I believe every Texan has a right to have a gun.
Right.
But HB 1927, and I've had conversations with the author of the bill, Matt Schaefer. Representative Schaefer is a good man. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army. I think he served as a lieutenant. And forgive me, Matt Schaefer, if I had your ranking wrong. As far as I'm concerned, you're a general in my eyes. But Representative Schaefer, I think, authored this bill with good intentions.
Okay.
But as I expressed to him openly and privately, I don't think it's a good idea for us to just allow anybody and everybody to have a gun without proper training.
Right.
Exactly. I think there is some value in ensuring that these schools that we have that are set to train people on how to properly not only use a gun, but also how to take care of a gun.
Right.
This is a weapon. And I think we've got to be responsible. The NRA started because they trained our military, because the U.S. government wasn't doing it. And so the NRA started because they were training people who would be defending our nation. And I just believe it's a mistake to just open this up for everyone to be able to use a gun without being trained on how to use
Right. It's dangerous, so that's true.
And how many people are committing suicide?
Right, that's, yes.
So the proliferation of guns, to untrained people concerns me. It concerns me. And then you've got depression rates going up.
Right.
I'm just very concerned about the spirit of this bill. So.
Right. And our producer, my producer, is holding up something. Pursuant to section, it's about a penal code, trespass to holder of a license to carry a concealed handgun. Yeah. So
a person licensed under subchapter H, chapter 411, government code, concealed handgun law may not enter this property with a concealed handgun. This sort of, opens us up to a lot more volatility with these guns just being, on your dashboard or,
right.
I think it's very provocative.
There needs to be more conversation. I wasn't following 1927 the way I should have been, and there's probably a whole show we could do on that, but it's scary, even for me, and I grew up in a household with guns, because I know that my parents taught me, don't touch these unless you know what you're doing. And that goes for anybody. I mean, I've had people that I've known that have been shot accidentally. I'm sure we all have.
Yeah.
And it's tragic. So take this seriously. Like now, it's not about the Republicans versus the Democrats, guns versus no guns, because even Charlie, who is a strong Republican, my boss here, he does not think that this should pass. And if Charlie doesn't think it should pass, then we know that, because he's he's a gun carrier and very strong with the Constitution. So
and police departments don't want it.
I can imagine.
It makes their job harder.
Right.
It makes their job hard, and it puts a bigger target on their backs, I believe. When you've got all these untrained people, that means, I don't have the discipline.
Right.
I just go and buy a gun, and I lack the discipline now. I don't know what I don't know about a gun, right? When you're being trained by someone who's certified to train you, they're going to cover all of the things that a responsible gun owner needs to know. And so I think, this is where we, sort of have different views. Is I believe we ought to listen to law enforcement on this.
Absolutely.
And law enforcement, every PD that I know of has come down to testify against the bill. And I don't want to make their jobs harder. It's already difficult.
Right.
Charlie's a staunch Republican.
Right.
I'm not. One thing I really appreciate and respect about Charlie and his staunchness. I mean, he's a serious Republican.
Right. Yes, he certainly is.
and yet I can talk with Charlie, and Charlie can talk to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I know Charlie will listen to me.
Right.
He doesn't always agree with me. Most of the time, he doesn't agree with me. And I
Right.
pray for him.
I know.
And he prays for me. But, it's not, I don't know everything.
Right.
And I didn't even have to say that. Everybody knows that. But I do know this. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts.
Yes.
And so if we can just have in politics some open discussions that I don't come to the table prejudicial about my position,
Right.
and married to my position or my ideas,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe we can get to a better place.
Right.
But this
I hope so.
power hungry, politics, zero sum game where, I got to have my way. I was born a Democrat, I'm going to die a Democrat, or I was born a Republican, I'm going to die a Republican. I think it does more harm to balance.
Right, exactly.
Our lives.
Well, remember Ronald Reagan was a Democrat, and then he turned Republican and ended up becoming president. So, I mean, there are people, you do change.
Right.
And would John F. Kennedy really have been a Democrat back? I mean, if he were here now, I think he would have been a Republican.
I think that's very
So
a valid point, because the parties have switched too.
there's a
Right.
lot of change, and I see one thing I like about you, and we're probably gonna have to wrap up soon, but is that you are willing to look at both sides. And I think there are more people that are doing that in Austin right now, and hopefully in Washington as well at some point. But, I think that's important, that you just keep doing that and being fair to everybody, because that's the most important thing. So what else do you want to talk about? We have 3 minutes, and I'm sure that we have forgotten something. I'm sure we have. Well, you're going to do a podcast soon.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the podcast,
yes.
and looking forward to partnering with you on that. I think it's going to
We're going to become famous. We're going to go
well,
viral.
I think it's going to provide an opportunity for us to get some substantive matters discussed.
Absolutely. With these people that can talk to it, that that can share information with you as well. Let everybody hear about it
Right.
from both sides.
One thing that's happened, I think, you asked me what I'd like to talk about here in the end,
Uh-huh.
is, I've spent more of my political time
Mm-hmm.
at the local level, as a city manager and as a mayor, as a city council member, as mayor pro tem. And in those more than 12 years that I served at the local level, I'm used to working with people
Mm-hmm.
to try and get to a better end, to compromise, right?
Right.
But at the state level, and I know at the national level, you don't see that.
No.
Whatever party's in control, they just bulldoze their way and get whatever they want to get done.
Exactly.
I am very concerned about the infatuation with local control that's now at the state level.
Right. That's another thing about how they're coming in and trying to tell cities. And I think we were talking about that. We only have 2 minutes, but there's not that many people that understand local control, because you were a mayor, 3 other mayors, 3 Republicans that were mayors, and 1
Yeah.
Democrat, and you.
That's right.
You guys are really the only ones that know what's going on here.
Well, and I
Local
wouldn't,
level.
and I appreciate that.
Well-
I wouldn't say that, but I do think that we do have some additional insight.
Well, yes.
And,
okay.
and the state allows for home rule cities, which we have about 352 home rule cities
Okay.
in our state, to create your own home charter,
Mhm.
your home rule charter, and those cities can create their ordinances.
Right.
And what we're doing is trumping what they've decided,
Okay.
instead of allowing those cities. If you want to be mayor, run for mayor. Instead of state rep.
Right. Right.
And allow the citizens to be able to control what
Okay.
they do in their.
So we're going to have to wrap up. We could talk forever, and
Okay.
I'm so glad that you came on, State Representative Sherman. It's always great to see you, and watch for our podcast and watch for him to be on the show again very soon.
Thank you, Rita Cook. Thank you, ECP, for all you do to make sure people get accurate news.
See you later.